Katie, that's right. We are right here on Highway 56 near Cocodrie. As you can see behind me, they are closing the floodgates. I'm going to step out of the way so you all can take a look. Now, as you all mentioned, things have changed significantly throughout the day. So early this morning, the Terrebonne Parish president did tell our Leah McNeil live on air that they had moved up the deadline to get out of this levee protection, or the area, I'm sorry, that is not protected by the levee. They issued a mandatory evacuation for Zone 1. Again, that's folks south of the levee protection system. This morning, they told them you need to get out by 6 p.m. We will be closing the gates at 7 p.m. As you can see, that is happening right now. Now, Terrebonne has also since then issued a curfew for all areas south of Morganza to the Gulf levee system. That is in effect as of now, tonight at 7 p.m. Now, they also issued voluntary evacuation for Lower Dularge, and the parish president did talk to us about that earlier today. Listen to what he had to say.
So based on the track moving east this morning, we do start have that conversation about storm surge. This is coming from the west is worst case scenario for us. In fact, we were just looking at maps about if it moves here, moves there, east or west, what does that mean for storm surge against our levee system? And so we're looking at information. That's why the levee district decided to move up, closing the roller gates for the roads tonight instead of in the morning. That had us move our mandatory evacuation up to 6 p.m. They're doing it at 7. We opened up our shelter at 6. We're opening up our shelter at 6 p.m. also, and then we issued a voluntary evacuation for Lower Dularge, and with that, it's everything south of the Falcon Canal.
Again, so you're hearing from Parish President Jason Badgeron there. This is actually one of his first storms as Parish President, but he's been a lifelong resident of Terrebonne Parish. He knows what happened to this parish during Hurricane Ida. Again, as we've been stressing, this is not an Ida. However, we did talk to him. There are 27 families still living in RVs in Terrebonne Parish following Ida. Now, if you combine that with folks who are still in temporary housing who have not made it back to their homes, he says more than 400 families total are still displaced from Ida. So obviously a lot of anxiety here in Terrebonne Parish as this storm moves in. Now, throughout the day, we have seen a lot of folks taking advantage of the sandbag locations across the parish. There were 17 set up. Many of those were self-service. They did have some options for elderly and disabled folks at the Grand Caillou location for pre-bags if you needed some help with that. That is closing tonight at 8. So you have about an hour left to go if you are needing some help with that. Now, I will also mention that right now a shelter is open for folks in need at the Municipal Auditorium. That opened tonight at 6. Now, I did ask if pets are welcome to come with you to that. They said pets are welcome, but they must be kept in a crate and you must bring your own supplies for them. So that includes a leash, that includes food, everything that you would need. And of course, bring your own supplies if you also are heading to those shelters. That includes any prescriptions you might need, any food, anything that you feel you may need to weather out this storm. Now, we have been driving throughout Terrebonne Parish all day today. We've seen a lot of rain. Actually, right now is kind of one of the first breaks that we've gotten from these showers. However, I will say that the wind has picked up significantly as we've gone further down the bayou here. So again, we are close to Cocodrie. We're watching this floodgate close. I talked to some officials who are out here on scene just about 15 minutes ago or so. I was asking them, are any people staying back? Are they staying within this area that is not protected by the levee protection system? They were telling me no, most people are getting out. At the time, they said they still had about 3 folks that were left, and they were getting them out. They were just packing their last items that they needed to get to evacuate. So most folks out tonight from this area, which is good news, and we of course are going to be watching closely this area. Storm surge is obviously going to be the biggest concern here. So 5 to 10 feet of storm surge is what the parish is preparing for. President Badgeron also told me earlier today, he said, obviously we're hoping 10 is the max. He was like, the goal is that even if it overtops, the levees don't give way. That's obviously what you want to, that's the best case scenario, obviously. So President Badgeron was telling us that they are watching things very closely. They are actually stationed right now in the Emergency Operations Center in Gray. So we talked with them before heading down the bayou here to watch these gates close. After these gates close, we will head back up to Homa and hunker down, as you all have been saying, for the night there. And then we will be back up bright and early reporting from Terrebonne Parish in the morning and throughout the day tomorrow to see what exactly the impacts are, as we are watching this area very, very closely for storm surge. Again, talking to the parish president about the effects of Ida that this parish felt, he was saying, you know, this is kind of the exact opposite of Ida, where Ida was a big wind event. He said this is going to be more focused on storm surge. So that is what they will be watching very closely over the next several hours as this storm gets closer and closer. And there you have it. The gate is almost closed there at this hour. So again, on Highway 56 here near Cocodrie, the flood gate is closing and folks have evacuated this area. So everyone in Terrebonne Parish should be, again, as you all were mentioning, hunkered down by at least 8 a.m. tomorrow morning. I saw a lot of folks out at the local grocery stores today making their groceries, getting their final items that they needed to get. And again, a lot of folks utilizing those areas where they had sandbag sites set up. So a lot of folks were out there heeding these warnings and getting those last supplies that they needed throughout the parish. But we will send it back to you all now with the floodgate closed here in Terrebonne Parish.
All right, yeah, that sector gate, anytime, you know, that is being closed, you know that there's a risk there. Thank you so much for all that great information, Lily. We really appreciate it. And we can't wait to hear your reports coming back in the next, you know, day or so. I think, you know, one of the main questions people are going to have is, what are they expecting in terms of storm surge? You know, you have so many bayous down in Terrebonne and Lafourche parishes. It's obviously a risk.
Katie, it definitely is. And even just driving down here from Homa down to Cocodrie today, you know, we saw, you all have been talking about it all day, but there obviously has been a lot of rain in the last week or so that we've seen throughout the southeast Louisiana area. So driving down here, you could see kind of some water that was pretty high in some of these waterways throughout the parish. So obviously you want to be mindful of that. Don't get out of your house if you don't have to, because that water already is high. And I can imagine as this storm surge moves in, that it will, it could increase the chances of all of these roadways flooding.
And Lily, you talked a little bit about how Terrebonne Parish went through so much with Ida. There are still several dozen people there who are not being able to be back in their homes yet, even 3 years later now. And you've driven all over the parish. So what can you tell us today about the mood? Is there any kind of anxiety or anything that you've picked up on from people who are preparing today?
Well, Devin, I'll tell you, you know, we have been in a couple of different parishes now covering storm events like this, right? And I will say that I saw the most people that I've ever seen at those sandbag sites today. So like when I said they were taking advantage of them, they for sure were. I mean, dozens of people out there with their shovels, getting those bags loaded up and ready to go. So I definitely think that people are heeding these warnings. And then, of course, if you're driving across the parish, I know you know this, but there are just so many people that are still have those blue tarps on their roofs and are still dealing with insurance and everything else. So you can definitely feel a sense of, okay, how bad is it going to be down here in Terrebonne Parish? And of course, we'll be here and we'll be monitoring things and just hoping and praying for the best for these folks down the bayou.
Yeah, Lily, how many trailers did you see as you were out and about? I mean, are there still a lot of people in FEMA trailers? I know that that has been a concern for elected officials there.
Yeah, so I wanted to get those numbers from the parish president earlier this afternoon because I had talked to him on the anniversary of Ida, August 29th, and he had told me that there were more than 400 people that were still displaced from their homes. Now that could mean that they're living with family or maybe they're in a rental home at this point, but they are displaced from their homes. Now he said 27 families are still living in RVs at this time, and those families were asked to not stay in those RVs while this Hurricane Francine, now we can officially say, I guess, that it's a hurricane, is making its way towards Terrebonne.
All right, very important information there and good advice to heed all those warnings. Lily, thank you so much.